Welcome into All Things People, Power, and Politics as the last leg of the 2024 race continues. I'm Ruparaj. 13. It's a number that's either lucky or unlucky, depending on if you're superstitious. It's also the number of days left until Election Day, so buckle up because we have a lot to get to tonight. Former President Donald Trump's Chief of Staff, John Kelly, giving a dire warning about how former President Trump would govern if he gets back into office. What he said, plus how both campaigns are responding tonight. And two Metro Detroit mayors possibly setting an example for our leaders in D.C., both on opposite sides of the political spectrum, but they find a way to come together for Metro Detroit and get things done for their communities. We're talking to them about the lessons we all can learn, and maybe some folks out in Washington could learn as well. Plus, major news involving the Arab American community tonight. After months of pushing the uncommitted movement during the primary, they say now they're urging people not to necessarily support either former President Trump or VP Harris. And they're sending out 75,000 flyers asking others to pull their support from both camps. We're sitting down with the publisher of the Arab American News for his take on the development, and a man who's kicked out of the Kamala Harris rally in Royal Oak this week. Did that have anything to do with his strong stance against any of the candidates? We go right to the sources for this. But those 13 days we mentioned, that's all the time the candidates have to make their last-second pitches for your vote. And if you voted already, it's too late. But the rapidly approaching election got us curious about how excited you are to vote in this year's election. So we hit the streets to get a pulse check. Here's some of what you told us.
Oh, God. Oh, God. I have been a dependable Democratic voter for years. I will probably continue to be. I don't think I've ever been less excited about a candidate.
I'm pretty excited to vote in this year's election. I'm voting for the Republican candidate, Donald Trump. Generally, I wouldn't vote Republican, but I think people overlook what a good job he had done.
I'm pretty excited to be able to vote for Kamala.
I'm very excited, just like I've been all my life.
It's quite interesting. I want to say that I'm excited for it. I just want to see a change in the world.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, you had some good presidents and you had some bad presidents, but at the same time, to me, it doesn't really matter as long as the country is ran right.
I know a lot of people are just excited about November 6th when all of this can be behind us. But we also asked you the question on our website, fox2detroit.com. You know the drill. You can scan the QR code right there on your screen. We asked you to rate your excitement level on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most excited. So far, the average excitement level for you is an 8. But most people who voted said their excitement level is at a 10. So it's just really people are pumped up or excited. Not a lot of apathy out there. It seems like a polarized vote out there as well. A bombshell by the New York Times today. Former President Trump's Chief of Staff, John Kelly, is warning that he believes Trump will govern like a dictator if he's allowed to do so. And expanding on that, Kelly said that Trump made comments like this about Adolf Hitler, the German dictator responsible for murdering 6 million Jews and millions of others.
He commented more than once that, that Hitler did some good things too. And of course, if you know history, again, I think he's lacking in that. But if you know what Hitler was all about, it'd be pretty hard to make an argument that he did anything good.
So what would you say when he said to you that Hitler did a lot of good things?
Well, I tell him that. I said, first of all, you should never say that. But if you knew what Hitler was all about from the beginning to the end, everything he did was in support of his racist, fascist life, philosophy, so that nothing he did you could argue was good. It was certainly not done for the right reason.
Kelly had this to say when asked if he believes the former president is a fascist. Take a listen.
Well, I'm looking at the definition of fascism. It's a far-right, authoritarian, ultranationalist political ideology and movement characterized by a dictatorial leader, centralized autocracy, militarism, forcible suppression of opposition, belief in a natural social hierarchy. So certainly, in my experience, those are the kind of things that he thinks would work better in terms of running America.
Well, the audio is a little hard to understand there, courtesy of the New York Times, not the best microphone there, but the Trump campaign released a statement about Kelly's claims, and we'll show you that in a second. But that statement also includes comments about what VP Harris said about Kelly's allegations. Take a listen to her.
It is deeply troubling and incredibly dangerous that Donald Trump would invoke Adolf Hitler, the man who is responsible for the deaths of 6 million Jews and hundreds of thousands of Americans. All of this is further evidence for the American people of who Donald Trump really is. This is a window into who Donald Trump really is, from the people who know him best, from the people who worked with him side by side in the Oval Office and in the Situation Room.
The Trump campaign released a statement saying Kelly's claims are untrue. It went on to say this: Kamala Harris is a stone-cold loser who is increasingly desperate because she is flailing and her campaign is in shambles. This is why she continues to peddle outright lies and falsehoods. Now an update to a story we brought you Monday on The Pulse. A federal judge has tossed another lawsuit over voter records in our state. This is important. The Republican National Committee sued Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson and the State Elections Bureau, claiming they didn't maintain accurate voter rolls. They say there are more registered voters than eligible citizens, but the number they cited include voters who are inactive and can't be removed because of federal and state laws. The judge said the RNC does not have legal standing and did not give enough evidence in their case. On Monday in The Pulse, we talked to Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson about this, even asking her if she wishes she could clean the rolls sooner. Plus a Republican on why he feels the issue needs immediate attention. Scan the QR code on your screen right now to watch that episode as well as any other past episode of The Pulse. We've covered a lot of ground since we've been on the air, and we're glad you've been a part of it each and every night. We're diving deeper into a major story for the Michigan vote. A prominent Arab American newspaper declining to endorse either Trump or VP Harris this November. We're speaking with the publisher of the paper, plus an Arab American who was actually kicked out of a Harris rally over the weekend. You're watching The Pulse on Fox 2. Welcome back. Back now on The Pulse, looking at all things people, power, and politics. Diving deeper as a major Arab American newspaper declines to endorse a candidate in this year's vote. The publisher of that paper, the Arab American News, Osama Sablani, is here with us. And so is Dr. Ahmed Ghanim, who was actually kicked out of a Harris rally over the weekend. We thank you both for joining us here today on The Pulse. I'm going to begin with you, Doctor. You were at a Kamala Harris rally. You were approached by someone from the campaign. You were told, please leave. You asked for an explanation. You weren't given one. You got an apology. What did that go like from the Harris camp?
They issued a statement, but there is no explanation of what happened. They didn't provide any explanation, and I'm still waiting for an explanation why they kicked me out.
We have a statement from the Harris campaign released to us just this evening. I'm reading it right from my phone as I texted a spokesperson from the Harris camp saying the campaign was swiftly informed by that group on Monday's incident and looked into it. Our campaign regrets this action and its impact on Dr. Ghanim and the community, and he is welcome at future events. We value our relationship with Muslim American community and are committed to ensuring all community and political spaces are welcoming and respectful to every American. When you hear that statement, does that change anything for you?
I'm glad I accept the statement, but still waiting for answer why they kicked me out.
We want to get more to that in a moment here. Osama Sablani, the Arab American News, and another organization together sending out 75,000 flyers to Arab Americans in Metro Detroit. What is that flyer going to say?
Well, first of all, let's say who the other organization is. The Arab American Political Action Committee. It was established in 1998, and since that year, every year, the PAC and the newspaper joined together, issued endorsements on each and every election, whether it's municipality, midterm, or presidential. In 2016, both of us, the organization and the newspaper, we did not endorse at that time in 2016. In 2020,
so you didn't go for Hillary or Trump at that point?
Correct.
This is abstained. Okay.
Correct. And in 2020, we endorsed Joe Biden because we do not want to see Donald Trump in office. The last 12 months, we are very sorry about what we've done.
What would you have done differently? You would have abstained in 2020 as well?
We should have abstained. And that's exactly what we're doing right now, because we have learned that if you do not trust the person that is running, that is listening to you and is always doing the things that you do not want to see him doing or her doing, then you should abstain from voting.
Are you concerned at all about what would happen if Donald Trump got back into office? In 2015, when he was running for the 2016 election, he was very strong, Doctor, in talking about his stance on Muslims coming into this country and what many people called a Muslim ban at that point. With that kind of a sentiment, are you worried at all if Donald Trump becomes president that the people will be affected in some adverse way?
Definitely we're worried, and as Muslims and Arabs, we did work hard with Biden. I did volunteer in his campaign. I did raise funds for Biden. We did a lot of work to get Biden elected. But what we see right now is like a pattern of not listening to us, of not valuing us. Even you don't, like when they kick me out of the campaign, how would I go back to my community and tell them, go ahead and vote for her? Because they tell me, even you got kicked out, and they didn't even tell you why they kicked out. So this is we don't feel that the party want us anymore.
But Doctor, with all due respect, in terms of the timing, this decision to send out the 75,000 leaflets and letters and whatnot was made before the incident with you on Monday. So by going to that campaign on that day, on Monday, did you want to hear something that could have changed your impression? And would you have then perhaps had an option to change your opinion if you went to the rally?
Most of the Muslim and Arab organization, they gave Harris a chance, and they told her, let's, you know, they didn't close the door. They said, we want you to come to us. You want to talk to us. There is easy. Actually, I talked to a lot of Democratic operatives and tell them there is very easy formula for Harris to gain the hearts and minds of the Arab community. But the problem is they don't even want to listen to us.
And you were not allowed to remain in that place, essentially the door closing on you personally, and that obviously has a personal effect on you. But Osama, I have to ask you, we know that Vice President Harris is not Joe Biden. We know that Vice President Harris was the vice president, and yes, it was under her White House as the VP that you saw the things that have happened. But she took a more harsh approach about making sure that there's a two-state solution and that we stop the killing in Gaza. Did that change anything for you?
No, Kamala Harris did not have a chance to, articulate her positions. In fact, she flip-flopped on many, many issues, including the Gaza and the Palestinians. We've heard her saying one thing, and another time she said the opposite. Kamala Harris, she was not consistent in her message, and we are not able to identify her and identify her goals and how she would govern. Now, going back to the question that you asked them, because I wanted to answer this question, they're always asking us about Trump, that because of our fear of Trump, we should rush and vote for Kamala Harris. That's what we did in 2020, and what we end up with, 43,000 dead in Gaza, 2,500 dead in Lebanon, total destruction in Gaza and in Lebanon.
And you blame part of that on the Biden administration.
We blame totally on the Biden. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris take full responsibility of what happened.
But if you look at October 7th, without the Americans taking part in anything at that point, you're looking at a situation that had nothing to do with Joe Biden. You're talking about a situation where hostages were taken. You're talking about a situation where, yes, Jews were attacked on that day. The retaliation, as you say, 43,000 plus people killed. But all of that has nothing to do with the Biden administration at October 7th. It is after that, right?
It has to do with the Biden administration, and it has to do with the previous administration and the previous administration. This situation has been brewing for 76 years. People are under occupation, brutal occupation, oppression for 76 years. October 7th did not come out of vacuum. So these administrations, the successive administration, they should pay attention that they need to find a solution. I just cannot say that I do not blame them. I have to blame them. You know why? Because we are the leader of the free world. We can make things happen. If there is a will, there is a way. There hasn't been a will in this administration. To the contrary, what Biden did in the last 12 months, he gave Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu all the weapons, all the necessary political cover, and the intelligence to go out and kill more people.
With fewer than 2 weeks left until the election, what can Kamala Harris come out and say today that would change the meter for you, Doctor?
That's easy. If I'm her advisor, I'll tell her to go out right now and said, my first 100 days in office, I will stop the war in Middle East. That's it, without even going into details. If she promises that, That will be her promise in the first 100 days in office.
Osama Sabani, you agree? If she says that, then things would change?
It's over. We're 13 days from the election. The decision has been made. We're going in. We're not going to vote for either candidates on the presidential race and also on the senatorial race.
Nothing she can do or say can change her mind.
It's too late.
Osama Sablani, thank you for your time. Dr. Ghanem, thank you for your time as well. It's a difficult conversation, one that is important to have, and we're glad you had it here on The Pulse. After the break, two Metro Detroit mayors have a lesson our leaders in Washington should learn from. I'll say it. How to work together despite political differences. Next on The Pulse. Stay. All right, it is People, Power, and Politics. Just 13 days to go before the big vote. Thanks for staying up with us here on The Pulse. Joining us to talk about civility and working together despite differences, Troy Mayor Ethan Baker and Royal Oak Mayor Michael Fournier. Good to see both of you. Thanks for joining us here on The Pulse tonight.
Good to be here.
All right, so we talk about decorum and decency and civility every single night on the show. And I don't, look, if you're a Democrat or a Republican and you look at leadership from Nancy Pelosi to Donald Trump and everyone in between, whether it's ripping up, a State of the Union address or saying something that's just ridiculous, both parties are responsible for their words and their actions. What can we learn locally? And that's what I wanted to bring you both here for. First of all, you do not agree on everything. You're the mayor of Troy. You're the mayor of Royal Oak. You're a Republican. You're a Democrat, even though you're a nonpartisan mayor in action. What kind of a difference does that make when you're sitting down to decide what's best for your cities, your communities? That stuff does come up, doesn't it? The way you think, the way you feel.
Oh, sure. It's in all of us, right? I think Mike would be the first to agree. We know that our issues that we face at the local level are not partisan issues, whether, how you're going to snowplow this year, how you're going to make sure public safety is provided infrastructure. Those aren't partisan issues, so it's easy for us to fall into the nonpartisan aspect of that. But the people in all of us, the people who we deal with and the council members we serve with, they all have their partisan bent. And I'll tell you right now, 2 weeks before this election, it's a little bit of crazy season for everybody. Everybody's really amped up about the election. I think it does affect their decision making as they come to the table and talk about things. But we do our best to try to keep a cool temperature for everybody and to focus on what's really important, which is serving the cities we love and making sure our cities and our residents are doing really well.
And so working together is something that you have to do. Royal Oak has its interests, Troy has its, and together you have to come to agreements on several occasions, even when you don't agree. Mayor, what is that like when you don't agree with another mayor of another municipality and you have to now work together? You don't do what they do in Washington. You do something a little different.
Yeah, and I think Ethan said it right. I mean, for us, it's about the quality of life issues, keeping people safe at the local level. And all the South Oakland mayors get together once a month and we break bread. And we have conversations that are affecting, dealing with everything that affects our communities. And we learn from each other and we listen to each other. Ethan called me up. We were hosting one in Royal Oak and we had something scheduled on environmental sustainability and economics. And he said, hey, Mike, is it a chance that we can get this other topic on there dealing with the Michigan World War II Legacy Memorial? And I said, absolutely. I know you're doing some great work up there. We're doing some work down there. Let's talk about it and let's bring it to everybody else's attention. And so we find common ground and we look to help each other because we believe, I sincerely believe that all our communities do better. We rise with the tide.
So what happens when someone at the federal level, they go run for Congress or Senate or become the president, and then you see this gridlock in Washington? Do you think that local municipalities can teach Washington a thing or two about civility, decency, and working together?
It's a heavy lift, Roop. I mean, I'm willing to try if you are, Mike. We'll work together. But it is, by the time you get to Washington, I think, and even Lansing, there's a lot of partisanship that's gone into getting you there, and you start falling into those factions, and tribalism is a very real thing when it comes to partisan politics. So it makes it difficult. But of course, if you get back to the basics and just focus on listening to people and doing what you can to make their lives better, ultimately the partisanship's going to disappear, and you can work with the humans that you're sitting next to at the table. And it's hard to teach, I think. It just happens by doing it over and over again. But I mean, I would love it if we could model at the local level what should be happening in Washington and if they'd actually listen and do it.
Do you think it's possible?
Yeah, I see it in Royal Oak every day. I work with 6 incredibly gifted, talented people that have great ideas that they're bringing to the table every time we get together. And we don't always agree. There's a lot of 6-1 votes, 4-3 votes, and we look at each other with respect. We treat each other with dignity. We realize, unlike sometimes at the national level, that if you disagree with somebody, it doesn't mean that they're stupid or corrupt. It just means that they're coming with a different perspective that actually, like Ethan said, if you listen carefully, you might be able to learn something and might be able to work together to do some really good things that your community expects out of you.
You know, I spent some time in Washington doing a couple of stories from the White House on the night of the State of the Union, and I talked to Congresswoman Debbie Dingell, and I said, I'm about to go talk to Republican Steve Scalise, who is a big Trump supporter and a very right-wing guy. And she goes, I love Steve. Please tell him I said hi. I go talk to Steve Scalise, and I said, I just came from Debbie Dingell. And he's like, Debbie and I worked together on this bill and that bill. So I have to ask the question, some of the shoulders on the media, the press, for only covering the fire and not covering when things work together. Would you agree with that?
Totally would agree with it. I think that's one of the reasons your show's doing so well, is because you're allowing civil conversation and people from different perspectives to come and talk about the issues and have it be a productive conversation. But media plays a role. I think money in politics plays a big role too. It's much easier to raise money off of a soundbite that sounds kind of negative or flashy than it is to talk about a kumbaya moment. No one wants to give money to that campaign, even though they probably should and would feel better on the inside.
I found it interesting. I was looking at social media, and the New York Post posted a video of former President Donald Trump genuinely wishing Kamala Harris a happy birthday while he was at that McDonald's this past weekend, and said, it's her birthday. What do you want to give her? I may give her French fries. I'll give her flowers. Happy birthday, Kamala. Got so few hits because people are not ready to accept that their guy could actually be nice to someone who's the enemy. Is that the problem that we're looking at here in terms of social media and how we're asked to choose sides?
Yeah, I think tribalism has a lot to do with it. I think it used to be that one person might affiliate with a political party, and now their whole identity seems to be a political party. And it's no secret how entertainment organizations, how news media, and how social media makes money. It's through engagement. And we're wired as humans to that limbic part of our brain to engage with things that make us upset and angry, and it feeds and feeds and feeds. And I think it's incumbent upon all of us, not just our electeds, but each and every single voter out there, each and every single person, to take a step back, relax, and ask, are you part of the problem? Are you feeding into this, or are you de-escalating the situation? And instead of scrolling for another hour, read a book. Talk to a friend.
And throw the phone maybe on the couch and say, let me go talk to some neighbors. But Ethan, that's one thing that you always talk about. You go into the community, I know you do, and I know you do too, Mayor. You go engage with people who think differently than you, right? And who think differently from each other. Do you think this country is as divided as we see on television, or do you think that it's actually more cohesive?
I actually don't think it's as divided. I think the media plays it up a little bit for a lot of reasons, but I think at the heart, we all are really just trying to get along with our neighbors. There's houses all over Royal Oak and Troy that have Trump signs and Harris signs right next to them. I drive by one every day and I see the neighbors out talking to each other, so I figured they're doing just fine in real life. They're not out there yelling because they have different signs up. But listening to people and understanding where they're coming from a little bit can go a long, long way. And I know as mayors and city council members, we do that. That's how we do our jobs most effectively. We have to listen to our residents and our people in our communities.
Final thoughts, Mayor Fournier, and what we can do to come together.
Yeah, I think have some hope looking at your local government. You may not be able to engage with any of the presidential candidates, but call your mayor, call your city commissioner. You may not agree with them on every issue, but you might learn something. And of course, they're going to learn something from you and maybe restore a little bit of hope in American politics.
Yeah, fire and disagreement is a part of the democratic process here in America. It's been there since our birth. We're not trying to extinguish that, but we certainly want to manage it and do it in a way that allows everyone to have a voice. And we thank you both for having yours on this show here tonight. Michael Fournier, the mayor of Royal Oak, a Democrat, and a Republican mayor from Troy, Ethan Baker, both here with us tonight. That's the Pulse for tonight. If you want to get in touch with me, ask an elected-related question for us to answer here on the show, just scan the QR code to send me an email. Battleground with S.E. Cup is next. I'm Ruparaj. Good night.